But also there is a big problem of calling every Republican a racist and calling everything racism. That goes on the left. You know, yeah. I mean, we were talking about on the show.
They set Kamala Harris up to fail. That was a 3-month campaign, and she was supposed to introduce herself to the American people. No wonder people were Googling, did Joe Biden drop out? And so...
No. No. You're saying 3 months wasn't long enough?
I mean, it was too long. I mean, it was long enough.
It was long enough.
If they had a primary...
It's not that they didn't have time to introduce. They met someone and didn't like them. Googling the day before, did Biden drop out? Or in a week. Huh? You know, did anyone in this audience not know enough about Kamala Harris pretty much after a week to make a decision? No. Yeah. The idea in a mass media age that 107 days is not long enough to know somebody?
You are way overestimating the American people.
Bill Maher is done playing nice. On Real Time, he lit into MSNBC with a ruthless takedown, blasting the network for turning every Trump headline into an apocalyptic meltdown. According to Maher, MSNBC isn't reporting news. They're trafficking in fear. He called out their obsession with nonstop Trump hysteria, mocking how every minor story becomes the end of democracy. He accused them of feeding viewers a steady diet of panic just to keep ratings alive. And the audience felt the burn. This wasn't commentary, it was a full-blown media assassination. And if you think that was harsh, Maher's just getting warmed up.
I feel like I speak for a different group of people. You ask why the audience is different. That's why. Because I want a group of people who are not ideologically captured by either side. I am tired of the extremes and the extremists who dominate the debate. Mm-hmm. They have the megaphone, and we hear them more, but I don't think they represent what most people in the country talk about. I think almost any issue, you could actually come up with a reasonable middle ground.
Bill Maher confronts MSNBC's Joe Scarborough and drops a bomb. Bill Maher didn't flinch. On air with Joe Scarborough, he shredded MSNBC for ditching journalism in favor of pure anti-Trump theater. Maher called out their obsession with twisting headlines to fit the outrage of the day, truth optional, drama mandatory. That mythical middle ground, Maher says MSNBC buried it. Fair reporting? Please. They're too busy turning Trump coverage into a nonstop panic reel. And yeah, we all remember that clip. Proof they're not just leaning left, they've toppled over completely.
You should be afraid of the other side, not my side. Well, I want to get our hands around a very difficult situation.
All right, Donald.
Hey, Joe, one other thing.
Donald, you got to let us ask questions. You can't just talk. No, you got to let us actually ask questions. You're just talking. All Muslims. Donald, you're not going to keep talking. We will go to break if you keep talking. We're going to ask you questions. All right, go to break. Go to break, everybody. Go to break. Go to break right now. We'll be right back with more Morning Joe.
Trump brings facts. Scarborough hits mute. Maher, he's done with it. You could hear Trump trying to lay down facts, but Joe Scarborough, he shut it down mid-sentence. No debate, no counterpoint, just silence. If it were Biden or Kamala, they could ramble in circles for 10 minutes and Joe would nod like it's divine wisdom. But Trump drops real points, and suddenly it's technical difficulties. That's not journalism. That's narrative control, and Bill Maher has had it. He's not just calling MSNBC biased, he's saying they've abandoned journalism altogether. But there's a deeper frustration Maher revealed, and to feel the full impact, you have to see this clip.
And inflation is back. I'm only here for 2.5 weeks.
That was January.
Inflation is back. No, think of it. Inflation's back, and they said, "Oh, Trump inflation." I had nothing to do with it. These people have run the country. They spent money like nobody's ever spent.
That's fact check, actually the biggest debt ever accumulated. It was during President Trump's first 4-year term.
Bill Maher exposes MSNBC's dirty trick. This isn't news, it's a smear campaign. What drives Maher up the wall? MSNBC's obsession with dissecting every Trump word like it's a national emergency. Only when a Republican's in office, of course. They've got outrage on speed dial for Trump, but when Biden's inflation crushed American families, Scarborough suddenly forgot how to read a chart. Maher's not buying it. He's calling out MSNBC for what it really is. Not journalism, but opposition research wrapped in a news logo. Their mission? Discredit Trump at all costs, even if it means rewriting the past and torching every Republican in sight.
One, there are racists in the Republican Party,
now,
as many people have. Well, I mean, there always have been. There used to be more in the Democratic Party. They were the Dixiecrat. But as someone once said, you know, is every Republican a racist? Of course not. But if you're a racist, that is the party you're going to gravitate toward. But also there is a big problem of calling every Republican a racist and calling everything racism. That goes on the left. You know, I mean, we were talking about on the show.
You're saying it's both sides,
There
is no doubt.
There's no misinformation.
There's some disinformation from the left, but comparing it to what Donald Trump spews out every day, every week, comparing it to what Elon Musk is spewing out, unfortunately, on X, there's no...
You were like, Bill, how can you, Mr. False Equivalency? It's like, no, Joe, come on. I thought you were Joe Scarborough. There's crazy on both sides.
Bill Maher didn't come to play. He straight up challenged MSNBC to look in the mirror and admit the crazy isn't just on the right. His message? If MSNBC wants to be seen as actual journalists, not a DNC hype squad, they need to start grilling their own side. Ignoring Biden's blunders and pretending the Democratic Party's dysfunction doesn't exist, that's why voters are walking. Maher's not asking for miracles, just intellectual honesty. But let's be real, that's not exactly MSNBC's specialty. His point cuts deep. You can't fix the system if you're too scared to call out your own team. Now listen to this.
It's terrible that I think that we have our own media silos. We need places where, like this show, but there's not enough of them, where everybody comes and everybody hears everybody else from all points of view.
Bill Maher didn't blink. He dropped truth bombs straight into John Heileman's lap and called out MSNBC's greatest failure, becoming a glorified echo chamber. Maher tore into their comfort zone reporting, slamming them for coddling viewers with partisan fluff instead of confronting hard truths. That's not journalism, it's fan service with studio lights. His point? If you only hold the other side accountable, you're not reporting, you're cheerleading. And voters, they're done with it. Just ask Kamala Harris how that worked out in the last election.
Basically setting women up for the big job, but to also fail. If they did well, fine. But if they failed, like, look, we have a female CEO while failing. And that's what I feel like they did to Kamala Harris. When Biden refused to step aside and not run again, he was supposed to be that bridge. He backed off on that promise due to arrogance. And then he drops out after a catastrophic debate performance. And they set Kamala Harris up to fail. That was a 3-month campaign, and she was supposed to introduce herself to the American people. No wonder people were Googling, did Joe Biden drop out? And so...
No. No. You're saying 3 months wasn't long enough?
It was too long. I mean, it was long enough.
It was long enough.
If they had primary...
It's not that they didn't have time to introduce. They met someone and didn't like them.
Democrats ignored the warnings and paid the price. Maher just spelled it out. If Democrats had stepped outside their echo chambers for 5 seconds, they would have heard it. Voters were done with Kamala Harris long before Election Day. But no, they staged puff pieces, scripted interviews, and edited out anything remotely critical. Real questions? Never asked. Real accountability? Never shown. They confused media spin for public support, and it blew up in their faces. You can't slap a press tour on unpopularity and expect voters not to notice. The result? A brutal, blindsiding loss they should have seen coming. And now, here's MSNBC's John Heileman defending the spin. Watch Bill Maher tear it to shreds.
There's never been anybody who's had the difficulty of that situation, elevated that late in the campaign. Why?
What? To run away
Bill,
from
I don't know if you know this, but the Vice President of the United States is basically shoved in a broom closet for 3.5 years.
I know.
Like, you couldn't.
She was more popular in there.
Yes, well.
I mean, this idea that in a mass media age, that 107 days is not long enough to know somebody?
You are way overestimating the American people.
Did John Heileman really say voters are too slow to get Kamala Harris? John Heileman just dropped the most condescending take imaginable. He actually suggested that voters are too slow to process Kamala Harris's message in time to make an informed choice. Really? This is how MSNBC sees the public? As clueless sheep who need the elite media to spell things out for us like we're in kindergarten? It's not just bias. It's a full-blown insult. The truth? We don't need a decoder ring or endless cycles of media spin. We hear the message, we see the candidate, we connect the dots, and we decide, often quicker than the networks can change their narratives. The real problem? When voters reject someone like Kamala, the media assumes it's because we didn't get it.
You're either the person who's Googling the day before, did Biden drop out, or you know in a week. You know, did anyone in this audience not know enough about Kamala Harris pretty much after a week to make a decision? Yeah, it just, people, it's ridiculous.
Why Kamala Harris didn't win, and it wasn't. Because we didn't understand her. Let's be clear, we knew exactly what Kamala Harris stood for, and we chose to reject it. The truth is simple. We didn't vote for her because we didn't like what she was offering. It wasn't confusion or a delay in understanding the message. As some MSNBC talking heads like to claim, that's not the issue. We understood it, and we said no. Had MSNBC actually done its job and provided fair, honest coverage, rather than acting like a cheerleader for the Democrats, maybe Harris could have had a chance. But instead, they spent every second tearing Trump down, letting their personal bias completely take over. And guess what? It backfired. People didn't tune out because they were blindly supporting Trump. They tuned out because they couldn't stand being played. When the bias is so obvious, it doesn't persuade. It drives people away. Voters aren't as naive as they think. We saw through the smoke and mirrors. We didn't buy into the media narrative, and we didn't buy into Kamala Harris. The decision was ours to make, and we made it quickly. If the media had just been straightforward and balanced, maybe things would have turned out differently. But they weren't, and that's why we rejected what they were selling. That's it for today's video. If you agreed with what you heard, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe for more. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you next time.